What's up guys, my name is Dychronic here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be talking about this week at Bungie for February 21st, 2019. Today is going to be the first day where they talk about the season of the Drifter. Now there's not going to be a lot of stuff, they don't actually talk about the DLC. They are going to be talking about a couple of different Gambit changes that are going to be happening, as well as a couple of Sandbox changes after that, and then after that it's really just the updates and whatnot. So there's not a lot of stuff to talk about this week, but this is going to be the first little dribble of information about Season of the Drifter and some Gambit stuff. I'm assuming next week, which is the last TWAB before March 5th, the release of the Season of the Drifter, they're going to be giving us more information, and the TWAB after that will be probably the teasers of all the new DLC stuff. There's going to be a lot of information in those ones. But this one, not a lot of information, but there's a couple of important stuff to know anyway. If you did not know, this week at Bungie, or the TWAB, is basically an update of what's happened in the past week, this current week, and what's coming up in the next week, the changes that are going around Destiny 2 and Bungie. If you want to know all about it, just sit back and relax. This is your audible version of TWAB. Make sure you enjoy the cute fluffers that are on screen now that are definitely not crocodiles this time, and I will be your narrator for it. So first and foremost, the first section, if you wanted to watch Bungie play the Scourge of the Past raid, talk about how they built the raid, you can check them out February 26th at their Twitch. Moving on to this first section, probably the big important section is going to be all about Gambit, the changes that are going to be happening to Gambit. This is probably not every change that's going to be happening, obviously with the Season of the Drifter and the changes with the new Drifter DLC. There's probably going to be more stuff. This is just the first section of stuff that's going to be coming on March 5th, which is probably when update 2.2.0 is going to happen. So first up, they're going to be making a change to the third round of Gambit, making it a primeval rush of sudden death. My assumption means that it's going to be no ads, no enemies. It's literally just going to be a boss and the boss's little allies, and you have to go as fast as possible, making it so those Gambit matches don't last as long. Next up, overall, the spawn location for invaders, so they're not inside of enemy guardians, making it so the invader is protected and the people they're invading, so it's not as quick as a just absolute destruction fest, and making more spawn locations so it's not as predictable. Also implementing idle protection to make it so people who are idle not doing anything get no rewards at the end of matches. The triumph for light versus light can now be progressed by killing guardians using a super, not just invader, making it a lot easier to get your dredge and title. And the last bit of this section is going to be an adjustment to the blockers of the deposit tiers. My assumption of the reason they did this is to make it so the small blocker is not as enticing and you want to go for those medium and large blockers. So the first thing they did was they made the small blockers a taking goblin, which I believe is going to be the regular peon guy, and it's not a hobgoblin, not the sniper guy, and he has less health than the previous phalanx, making him a lot less formidable. Second up, the medium blocker is going to be a taken captain with more health than the previous knight. And lastly, the large blocker is going to be a taken knight with more health than the previous ogre, making these guys a lot more enticing and this guy just basically worthless. And then finally, thank God we don't have any more goddamn phalanxes, because they pushed me off the edge so many times. And then last section about Gambit is there will be a triple infamy weekend. I believe this is the only infamy increase we've had all season. If you're looking to get that last reset for the ghost and you've been sitting on it waiting for this weekend to happen, starting February 26, 2019, all the way to March 5th, which is going to be Season of the Drifter, you have a triple infamy week. The entire week, if you want to get infamy points for Gambit and get those resets, that is the time to do it. And as a note on that, this week is actually going to be the strongest week for the strongest curse week. If you're looking for meatballs, you should still do it this week. Next week will be the weakest curse and have the least amount of meatball. Next up, let's talk about these Sandbox changes. A couple of changes to linear fusion rifles and shotguns that are going to be kind of significant, and I highly recommend you pay attention. This is all coming with update 2.2.0 that I assume is coming on March 5th or the next Tuesday, which is going to be March 12th. First off, they're making a change to linear fusion rifles. They have way too much aim assistance at long ranges. They're going to be reducing that aim assistance. And there's also a funky unintended thing that happened with the Queenbreaker that resulted in it having double the aim assistance than it should have had, which is exactly the issue, is that the linear fusion rifles have been dominating because of their effectiveness over long range and the aim assistance. To counteract this, they're making linear fusion rifles have a 10% increased damage bonus to PvE. So in a nutshell, they're reducing aim assistance and increasing damage. Next up, let's talk about shotguns. They've noticed that rapid fire shotguns are the only thing that we want to use in PvE for a very good reason. They have double the fire rate than they should have. If you did not know, 100 RPM shotguns, if they have rapid fire, which is every 100 RPM shotgun, they have 200 RPM. I've tested it myself. It's anywhere from 180 to 200 RPM depending on your frame rate, and that is absolutely ridiculous. PvE shotguns, it's all about rapid fire, making a lot of the other ones like the aggressive, precisions, and lightweights basically ineffective and useless. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be reducing how much effectiveness that increase for rapid fire frames are going to have. So first up, they're going to make it so that the shotguns in PvE are going to have a damage multiplier, basically doubling their damage. Now keep this in mind, later on I'm going to have a question for this that doesn't make much sense. The Legend of Accuracy is an exception to it. Second up, full auto rate of fire bonuses are now 10% more instead of 100%. So like I was saying, the 100 RPM with rapid fire are really like 200 RPM. Instead, from what this says, it seems like they're going to be around 110 RPM. In addition, there'll be a lot less spread with these rapid fire frames. Next up, they've also adjusted the fire rate of all the other shotguns. The aggressive frames, the 45 RPMs like the Toil and Trouble, are going to be upped from 45 to 55. The precision frames like the Dust Rock Blues are going to be up from 55 to 70 RPM, and the lightweights, I think like Parcel of Stardust, I think is a lightweight, were erroneously labeled as 90 RPM. There's actually supposed to be already 80 RPM. And lastly, the rapid fire will be a 140 RPM down from the 200 RPM. Now this kind of conflicts with the idea up here of a plus 10% bonus. I said was around 110. My assumption is that this is going to be the base number because of the fact that other shotguns can have full auto, which effectively doubled their fire rate before. That's only going to give them a 10% bonus. So that's the reasoning behind that. Next up, they also reduced the base damage for all shotguns to align with their new fire rate. Since everything is getting a fire rate bonus, they're also going to reduce the base damage. However, this kind of confuses me because they also said shotguns will get a damage bonus in PvE, doubling their damage. I guess this only applies to PvE, so they're getting a reduction in everything here because this is getting a bonus in everything, and then they're just boosting in PvE, which kind of makes it weird because shotguns were the best thing in PvE anyway. And lastly, ammo reserves for shotguns are going to be reevaluated to adjust to the new increased efficiency of having more damage per shot. Again, weird to say this, having more damage per shot, because they also said they reduced the base damage, but also doubled the damage. I'm a bit confused there. And the last little section about the shotguns is they're going to be reducing their one-shot potential in Crucible, perhaps to make them a lot less effective and maybe have some more special weapons shine through. Thank freaking God. Shotguns, I love them, but everybody else loves them more, and they just totally crush me. And this last section here about the Crucible, One-Eyed Mask is going through a nerf. It became basically a non-choice. Everybody who's a Titan who plays PvE, PvP, you have to use One-Eyed Mask. It's the only option for you. You can see enemies through walls, you get immediate health regeneration and full overshields. This thing is incredible, and it is extremely effective. So we're going to be reducing it in a lot of different ways. First off, Mark of Vengeance, where you can see people through walls, reduced from 15 seconds to 8 seconds. That's also going to reduce the time you have to be able to get the kill and get your bonus. Second off, they're not going to be giving you a huge dump of health immediately with an overshield regeneration. The health will be slowly over time, just like the overshield. And lastly, Vengeance will no longer trigger for players in Super, which made Supers extremely powerful. Basically, if you shot a Super and he killed you, he got his entire health and overshield back, making him way too powerful. Next up, let's talk about Dr. Bungie, all the things they're going to be updating and all the things that are a problem in Destiny 2 right now. This is what this section talks about. In the previous TWAB, they had a part 1 of all the issues they're going to be resolving in 2.2.0. Again, I believe 2.2.0 is going to be in early March. They haven't set a date, but it will either be on March 5th or March 12th. First up, the mint condition triumph is not tracking properly. This is the one with the shield generator in the Dreaming City, where you have to make it so it never takes damage. That one's a weird one. Next up, the Forge and Fire, which is going to be the Crucible badge to get all the different armors and weapons and shaders and stuff, is not unlocking properly. The Master Smith Triumph, with the one that does not count the rare research frames. We have to get 100 of those frames completed to be able to get the ship and all that stuff. They're trying to make it so that the rare research frame should complete. Calculated trajectory, not counting an Iron Banner. That's going to be your grenade launcher kills of some variety. If you want to get the mountaintop quests, you need this to count. The Eternal Return emblem, which you get from completing the Shadow Throne solo, which tracks the number of Dolan Karo kills you have. The Senior Recruitment emblem from the Refer a Friend completion, not tracking the number of completions correctly. The Black Armory Devotee bounty, making it so you cannot progress the bounty when using a non-frame Black Armory weapon. And the very last thing they wanted to address in 2.2.0 is going to be an update to the Sturm quest. Now, a lot of people will have some confusions about decrypting 5 legendary engrams and picking up 1 exotic engram and how it affects in like the Zur, in the Cryptarch, and the Year 2 way of doing things has changed it a bit. If you're wondering about any of that stuff, look on screen now. I'm not going to read it all to you, but if you want to know more about it, just read this screen if you're having problems with that part. And that is pretty much it. The rest of it is going to be a movies of the week kind of thing if you've ever wanted to see somebody do solo Argos as a Titan. And then the last section here, which is kind of important, is they're going to be changing the way you look at Hunter cloaks. Whereas before, when you previewed them in your inventory, you can only see from the neck down and you couldn't see the headpiece, and it made it very difficult to actually be able to know what color they are when you're coloring them. So they're going to be changing it in 2.2.0, which again is going to be early March, but where you can see the whole thing, which is something that I have been waiting for quite a while. And that is pretty much it. Ignore these guys who have actually completed the Shadow Throne dungeon solo, both Cosmo and DMG now 04. I completed it quite a few weeks ago, almost like a month ago. All right, yeah. But that's it. That's the video for you guys today. Hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know in comments down below if you had any questions. My name's Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next.